$211 million in denied claims are sitting on your desk right now, and your general counsel just said 6 words that stop your heart cold. This cannot leave this room. You are 55 years old. You are chairman of an insurance empire that writes $500 million in premiums every single year, and one bad reinsurance treaty signed a decade ago by someone who isn't even at the company anymore could unwind 23 years of work in a single afternoon. This is level 7. But nobody starts at level 7. Nobody starts anywhere near it. Let's go back to the beginning, to 22 years old, a company badge, a headset, and $34,000 a year. There are 7 levels between that badge and this office, and here is the number that should actually scare you. Less than 0.5% of licensed insurance agents in this country ever build something worth more than their next paycheck. Most people quit before year 2 ends. You didn't quit. Let's find out exactly what that cost you, level by level. You are 22 years old, sitting in a cubicle for a captive carrier, making $34,000 a year plus commission you haven't actually earned yet. Your manager, a woman named Carla, who has been doing this for 11 years, hands you a script and a printed list of 200 cold names. You call 60 people today, she says. You'll get maybe 2 who don't hang up on you, and 1 who actually listens for more than 10 seconds. You dial. Voicemail. You dial again. A hang-up. A woman named Diane tells you flatly that she already has State Farm and doesn't need a pitch from a kid who sounds like he's reading off a card, because you are. You keep dialing anyway. By month 4, you finally close your first real sale, a $200 term life policy, and your commission check arrives for $19. $19. After 4 months of rejection stacked on rejection, you start skipping lunch just to squeeze in 10 more calls. Your girlfriend at the time tells you that you talk about premiums in your sleep now, and she isn't joking. You laugh it off because you don't understand yet that this is the very first payment in a currency that has nothing to do with money. It's your time, handed over 1 dial tone at a time for a shot at something you can't even picture. 3 years pass. You're 25 now, and you've broken away from the captive carrier to become an independent producer. No more script. No more Carla standing over your shoulder. Just you, a license, and access to 11 different carriers instead of just 1. Your income jumps to $61,000 a year, and for the first time, this actually feels like a career instead of a job you're waiting to escape. But independence comes with a price nobody mentions in the training videos. You eat what you kill, every single month, starting from 0, forever. A carrier representative named Marcus pulls you aside at a regional conference and tells you something that rewires how you think. The agents who make it past year 5 aren't the best closers in this room, he says. They're the ones who build a book they actually service, instead of chasing every commission check like it's their last one. You start listening to him. You stop chasing one-time sales and start building renewal business, policies that pay you again and again as long as the client stays with you. It's slower. It's far less exciting than closing a big policy on the spot. It's also the first time you understand this business isn't about selling once. It's about owning relationships that compound quietly, in the background, while you sleep. At 29, you open your own agency. You are no longer a producer, you're an owner now, with 3 people on payroll and a lease you signed with your own name attached to it. Your book is worth $2 million in annual premiums, and on paper, you're doing great. In reality, you haven't taken a real day off in 14 months. Your first hire, a sharp young agent named Priya, walks into your office on a Friday night and says something that lands harder than any client rejection ever did. You told me this job wouldn't eat my weekends, she says. It's eating yours instead. You don't have a good answer for her. You've traded cold calling for something heavier. Payroll deadlines, chargebacks when clients cancel policies early, carriers that can drop your contract without warning if your loss ratio looks bad for 1 bad quarter. Your marriage starts to feel like a business relationship, scheduled and transactional, calendar invites instead of conversations. You tell yourself this is temporary, that once the agency gets bigger, it'll get easier. It doesn't get easier. It just changes shape, because right above you, There's a level where the money multiplies, but so does the number of people depending on you to be right every single day. If you're actually learning something from this climb, go ahead and hit subscribe, because level 4 is where this stops being a small business and starts being a machine. At 34, you become a managing general agent, an MGA, which means carriers now trust you enough to underwrite policies on their behalf instead of just selling their products. Your agency writes $25 million in annual premiums across 4 states now. You have 31 employees. You have a title that sounds impressive at dinner parties, right up until someone asks what it actually means, and you're not entirely sure how to explain it in one sentence anymore. What you also have is a compliance department breathing down your neck every single quarter, because now you're not just selling insurance, you're making underwriting decisions carriers hold you personally accountable for. A regulator named Mr. Alvarez sits across from you during a routine audit and says flatly, "One bad book of business, one pattern of underwriting we can't defend on paper, and we pull your authority in all 4 states, effective immediately, no appeal." You realize you're no longer building a business, you're managing a risk that could disappear overnight because of one wrong call on a portfolio worth millions. You start sleeping with your phone next to your pillow, just in case. Your father, who never fully understood what you do for a living, asks you at Thanksgiving why you look 10 years older than you did last year. You don't have a real answer for him either. By 41, you've built something bigger than any single agency, an IMO, an insurance marketing organization, a network of independent agents who write business under your umbrella. $120 million in premiums flow through your network every single year. You don't sell insurance anymore. You sell access, contracts, and leadership to hundreds of agents who now depend on you the exact same way you once depended on Carla. But networks are fragile in a new way nobody warned you about. One of your top recruiters, a man named Dominic, who personally built 40% of your growth last year, walks into your office and tells you he's leaving to start his own competing network, taking 18 of your agents with him. "It's not personal," he says. "You taught me everything, including how to leave." You watch 6 years of relationship building walk out the door in under a minute. You realize that at this level, your biggest asset and your biggest threat are the exact same thing: people. You start signing agents to contracts with real legal teeth, because trust alone stops being enough to protect what you built. Your kids are 7 and 9 now, and you missed both of their birthdays this year for carrier conferences in 2 different states. At 48, you're CEO of a holding company that owns 4 agencies, 1 MGA, and a stake in a small reinsurance fund. $310 million in premiums run through your companies annually. You have a board now. You answer to people who never sold a single policy in their entire life, but who control whether you keep your job at the end of every quarter. A board member named Elizabeth, representing your outside investors, tells you during a quarterly review, "Growth is good, but our models show your loss ratio in the commercial line trending up 2 straight quarters. Fix it before the next review, or we discuss leadership changes at the next meeting." You built this company from a cubicle and a cold call script. You could still lose control of it in a single vote. That's the part nobody tells you when they show you the number on the door. At $300 million, it stops being yours the way it used to be, and starts being a shared asset that other people now have strong opinions about. Your doctor tells you your blood pressure looks like something they usually see in men 15 years older than you. You take the medication he prescribes. You keep flying to board meetings anyway, because the empire doesn't pause for checkups. And this is how you end up back where we started, 55 years old, chairman, $500 million in annual premiums, staring at $211 million in claims that could collapse everything if you handle the next 72 hours wrong. Your general counsel, a woman named Renata who has been with you since level 4, sits across from you and says the truest thing anyone has said to you in years. "You didn't build an empire," she says. "You built a structure that's still standing because you haven't made a fatal mistake yet." That's the revelation nobody tells you at level 1, back when you're dialing 60 cold names for a $19 commission check. There is no level where the risk actually disappears. There is no level where someone above you stops being able to take it away from you. The regulators, the reinsurers, the board, the carriers, they're all still there at every single level. They just wear better suits the higher you climb. What actually separates you from the 22-year-old with the headset isn't that the fear went away somewhere along the road. It's that you learned how to make decisions with that fear sitting right next to you every single day for 33 straight years. The empire was never really about the premiums on the page. It was about how much pressure you could carry before you finally broke, and you found out, one level at a time, that the number was higher than you ever thought, and the price attached to it was higher too. Somewhere out there right now, there's a 22-year-old with a headset and a printed list of 200 cold names who has absolutely no idea that 33 years from now, he'll be the one deciding whether an entire company survives the week. That was you, once. Next episode, we're stepping inside a different kind of empire. The hospital administrator who climbs from a rural ER intake desk all the way to running a billion-dollar healthcare system and finds out that the sicker the system gets, the richer the people at the very top become. Tell me in the comments which level would break you first, the audits that never stop, or the years with your kids that you can never get back.